broadcast because I have a new friend of mine named Mark Garman on, who's going to be, I'm actually on his show, and we're going to just going to be rapping about similarities of what happened to both of us, because he had a hemorrhagic brain injury which led to a stroke, and I actually had an ischemic injury which led to a stroke. So we can talk about those. And Mark, if you want to take it away and kind of let the audience know who you are and why we're both so determined to be here.
Hey, Shawn, how's it going, brother? Yeah, so, as Shawn already pointed out, I had a stroke. So mine came from AVM that I had. And, I had seizures all my life. I had one when I was 9. They attributed it to some fluke accident. I had one when I was 11. And they attributed it to playing soccer in 115-degree heat in pants. And then I had one when in 1996, around Christmas time, they finally decided to run some tests and found out I had an AVM in my brain, which is an intravenous malformation. And they decided, it's time to go ahead and remove it. So in March of 97, they went in to remove it, and my brain swelled, my right lung collapsed, and they put me in a barbiturate coma, and they went in to remove it again, and they found out I had water on the brain, so they put in a cerebral shunt, and they went in to finish the surgery. They found out that the shunt got infected, which caused the bone to get infected, so they removed the bone, replaced the shunt. It's time to go back in and remove the AVM. They removed the AVM. CAT scan, MRI proved that they didn't remove the whole AVM. So they finished removing the AVM. Woke up from my coma, couldn't talk, couldn't move. So I, had to learn how to do everything all over again. This is all my freshman year in high school. I went back to school my sophomore year with a small base four-prong cane, wearing a helmet, because I had no bone in my head. And then my junior year in high school is when they finally put a plate type thing in my head. And at the end of my junior year, I didn't need my cane anymore. I went on to achieve my MBA in 2015. And during that time, at the end of my MBA program, I was having crazy migraines, and I went to the hospital. I told them, hey, it has something to do with my shunt. They did a CAT scan, MRI, told me I was fine. So I went home. Still, I was having crazy migraines. My equilibrium was all jacked up. The migraines were so severe that I was vomiting. And I went back to the same hospital, told them the same thing, has something to do with my shunt. The head nurse laughed at me and said, "You're just here for a headache." I said, "No, lady, I'm not just here for a headache. There's something wrong." CAT scan, MRI just to appease me, sent me home. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's nothing wrong with me. But, same thing at home, crazy migraines, throwing up, waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning because my migraine's so severe. Go to a different hospital, tell them the same thing, something wrong with my shunt. CAT scan, MRI, send me home. Go to a better hospital in our area, tell them the same thing, CAT scan, MRI, send me home. And I wait a little bit longer this time, maybe a week, thinking, maybe it's something that'll pass over. It didn't. So I had a son at the time. My oldest son was about 2 months old. I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I told my wife, "You know what, baby, it's time to go down to UCSD Medical Center where I originally had my surgery." We drive down there at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I told them, "Hey, what's going on? It has something to do with my shunt." They finally did a whole scan of my shunt, and it ended up being broken in my neck. So all the fluid that's supposed to be draining down to my abdomen is just building up in my head and putting pressure on my brain. So that's where the migraines were coming from.
Wow. So, okay. Hey, Mark, tell us again. AVM stands for what?
An intravenous malformation. So what it is you have the arteries, and they can they can happen anywhere in your brain, in your spine, anywhere in your body, but that's usually where it happens, is in your brain or in your spine. And so you have your blood vessels, and the veins break off and create this cluster of blood vessels, and that's what an AVM is. So your blood vessels pump this blood to the AVM, and this excess blood, and that's what causes them to hemorrhage, because this excess blood flow is going to the AVM.
Wow. Okay. So all this is now happening to you, what are you thinking? Like, where is your mindset emotionally, physically? You're now paralyzed. Emotionally, what is taking place, and how'd you get through that?
Well, to be honest, I was an all-star soccer player before that. MVP of my team. You know, I had no fear. I remember, vividly walking in, 15 years old, no fear that everything was going to be fine. I was going to get out of it. I had aspirations to play soccer, to play football in high school, but they wouldn't let me do it, because I had the AVM. And, I woke up from my coma, and, obviously couldn't talk, couldn't walk, couldn't move. And hey, I was determined that I was going to be fine. So I went in there, essentially balls to the wall to get better.
I get it. It's just we don't have a choice. That's the way I look
Well,
at it. It's like we don't have time to sit at the quarter. When someone says you're paralyzed and your brain's not working, and it's up to you now to refigure everything out. And we both had kids. My kids, when the mine happened, were about 4 years old and 18 months, and I don't want to sit in the wheelchair. I refuse to sit in the wheelchair. With all the medications I'm on and everything else. Your coma was how many days?
a month and a half.
Yours was a month and a half. Mine was 10 days. So I started to atrophy. You probably atrophied a lot more than I did. I came in, built like a brick shit house, excuse my language, cut up, ripped up, living in San Diego at the time, training with the Navy SEALs. I was on a Navy SEAL myself, but I had become friends with a lot of them, and I got myself in the best shape of my life. And one of my good friends, who's Dan Henderson, as we all know, who his name is Hendo. He's an ultimate fighter. He's going to be coming on my show on Monday.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
he said, well, "Thank you." He said he fought for the title and won. He said, "I fought with God and won, and God let me live." But I don't think I fought with God. I think I just was so determined and believed in myself that I can beat through this crazy time in my life. And at the time I was paralyzed. I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk. I couldn't read. I was blind. I was on my left side. I mean, everything had to be relearned and reprogrammed.
Hmm.
I mean, it's like your computer, gets rebooted. Our brain had to get rebooted. And you were obviously in high school at the time, so your plasticity of your brain was a lot more fresh, a lot more agile to come back. Mine was actually at
Right.
39. So at 39, mine hit me right at the peak of my career. Life was really good. I lived on the beach in Point Loma, which is in San Diego, on the Sunset Cliffs, getting ready for a Spartan race, getting ready to training with the Navy SEALs every day, training with Dan Henderson, doing some jujitsu, doing my yoga, and I was in business with Shaquille O'Neal, been building a tequila company, and everything was spot on. I mean, everything was great. And then one day, I think my ego, my arrogance just got in the way. And I keep saying this to everybody. I think it was God's point to make me into one of his messengers to go out there and start talking about all this. And because I didn't know what paralyzation was. I didn't know what a stroke was, Mark. I don't think you did either. And
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't even in San Diego. I was in San Luis Obispo at the time for Thanksgiving, and mine actually happened on Black Friday, where we had been drinking the day before with the kids. The wineries up there. Not my kids were young; they weren't drinking, of course, but with Stephanie, and I didn't know any better. I woke up the next day, I thought I was hungover, but the room was spinning. I looked in the mirror. My face was ash gray. I couldn't lift my left arm. Literally my lip on my left side was drooping, and I literally looked in the mirror and I put my hand up and I could not see my hand. My hand was like this invisible kind of movement. And I looked over at her and I said, "You better call my dad. I think I'm dying. I'm crossing over right now." And sure, because of the dissection I had in my carotid artery, the lack of blood and oxygen going to my brain, I was going into brain damage right then and there. And sure enough, the paramedics came, took me to one hospital, couldn't diagnose me, and medevaced me to Santa Barbara, where there happened to be a neurosurgeon in the hospital, in the ER on Black Friday. Because anywhere else in the world, I probably would have died. And he knew what to do. He came in immediately, put a shunt in my carotid artery, would stop the clots and stop the clots from going up to the brain, stop that part. But the problem is, my brain was swelling so badly that he tried to freeze me next. That didn't work either. So then the next thing was, after a couple of days, they had to induce a coma, and they had to put me to sleep for 10 days. And the whole time I'm thinking, I'm trying to talk and I can't talk it. And I'm like, just let me out of here. I'll heal myself. I'm freezing in here. You're trying to put me on ice baths. I need some hot yoga. I need to go roll. I need to get back in the ocean. Let me go surfing. Get me out of here. Get me out of here. And I couldn't even talk. So put me to sleep. And when I woke up, I looked over at my dad and my good friend and started scratching my abdomen. And he said, "Don't scratch your stomach." I said, "Why?" They said, they put your skull in your abdomen to preserve it, and we're gonna put it back on in a couple days. I'm like, my brains are in my belly. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, and then I couldn't even sit up straight because I had no midline. And I said, "I'm gonna go down and give you 20, and I'm gonna go run a sub 8 minute mile, which is an 8 minute mile or less," because I was in that mentality of that working, going. But I couldn't even sit up in bed. And when all this started hitting me, I couldn't speak. I didn't know my name. I didn't know what an iPhone was. I didn't know how to maneuver things. And life threw me you a curveball. But I look at you as being a miracle. But I also think that, in my comeback is that, taking my first steps, I'll never forget this. I remember saying to myself, "I can, I shall, I will." And as I started saying that mantra, I was able to take my first step, my second step, my third step. Yeah, I was with a long cane. There was a 4-prong cane, a 3-prong cane, and then I got on the elliptic, and then I got on the recumbent bike, or that next step bike, whatever the therapy was, and it was a tough journey. I was in and out of rehab for probably for about 2 years. I still think I'm in rehab. I still do things that are off the beaten path, and that's why I built my podcast, so I can talk to people like yourself and to give people hope and inspiration, because I think you and I were touched by God and to come back and to give some light back in this world.
Yeah. And that's exactly why, I started, mine as well. I went to get my MBA, achieve my MBA, and I would walk into a job interview, and the first thing I would notice, the interview person would focus on my lip, and I kind of talk with my hands, and my left hand doesn't move the same as my right hand. And, they would just be focusing on my left hand. And so naturally, if I didn't get the job, my natural thought process would be, I didn't get the job because of my disability, So I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And that's why and everything led me to here, sitting right here in front of you.
We had just met. You came over my feed on my social media, and I said, "I got to meet this guy, Marc." Half the time I meet people, I just it's put in front of me for a reason. And I think everybody right now is so scared and in fear and paralyzed. But I keep telling everybody, our good friend of mine, Sam Morris, who teaches me, he's got a full spinal injury. So Sam's got, from belly button down, he feels nothing. And he's paralysis is just an inconvenience. But he's like, when he wheels into a room, he's like 8 feet tall, because he's like a Zen warrior who teaches breath work and teaches us how just to live with what we have. And I tell everybody now, especially with the world freaking out, you're more paralyzed in your brain than you can ever be in your body. And that paralysis in the brain can lead to such emotional distress that it could cause anything. I mean, you and I don't know about you, but I've been through forced drug addiction. And when I mean forced drug addiction, I mean being on a cocktail of drugs, knowing to numb my brain, the pain narcotics. And I knew I didn't want to be on those forever. That I don't like meds, but I know that I needed them, and I still need some of them now to some of the things I take. But I'm not against all that. But I do believe that Eastern medicine and Western medicine together, form together to create the right package, can then heal anybody.
Mm, yeah. And so circling back around, did you already discuss how you acquired your stroke?
Oh no, I didn't on this one. I'm sorry. So I was in San Diego. I had become friends with SEAL Team 7 out there, and these guys, the war on terror had just been was evolving and was winding down. But a lot of these guys had seen deployment and were operators on the ground. And I did not know, we become friends because their kids were friends with my kids. And I was a huge advocate and a huge love and support for the veterans. And I have a good friend out there named Dan Henderson, as I mentioned, who had a local gym out by us. So I take these guys with me to go roll with Dan. And, I was also mentoring them the acquisition from going from being a military superb athlete, how do you integrate with civilian life? So it was very hard for them and challenging. So I was giving back my time, my love. And at the same time, I was rolling with these guys. And one day I got choked out on my right side. The carotid artery got smashed and it got dissected. So which means the blood flow wouldn't go to my brain. And I walked around with this pulsing bruise in my neck probably for several weeks, saying, "Oh, it's nothing. It's going to go away. I'm immortal. I'm training with Navy SEALs. I'm hanging out with Jack. I'm surfing. I'm making money. Life is great." And then 6 weeks post, God had other plans for me, and then I suffered a massive stroke.
Wow. Yeah, I was last it wasn't last week, but Thursday I was interviewing Lori Marks, and she had a severe migraine, which essentially just pinched the nerve in her brain, which
Yeah.
caused her to have a stroke. It just clamped down
Yeah,
on a nerve in her brain, and I've never heard of such a thing.
yeah,
And apparently, the same thing with you.
yeah.
Just someone just choked you out.
Yeah, and again, I'm a fan of the sport. I love the sport. I still watch the sport. This can happen to anybody and anytime. And it's not about what it's not. I've always said this. It's not about why me. It's about what's next. And what I mean
Hmm.
by that, even though we're faced with challenges, listen, the whole world is in an uproar and panic and fear with this COVID and 19. It's no different than what you and I were going through. Everyone's in isolation. You and I was isolated for months at a time because I was recovering in the hospital. Now,
Hmm.
everyone else is feeling the world as the new norm, but our new norm is different. So I believe that you and I have an edge over people because we're like,
Oh,
yeah, I want to stay away from this coronavirus, especially I do, and you as well. But it's not going to stop you and I from living our life. Eventually
no.
we're going to get back. And I said yesterday on an interview I did, is life is for the living. And
Yeah.
to have a choice to take a drug, sit on the couch, or drink a beer, or get addicted to something, which
Hmm.
which doesn't help us, or we can keep going because my responsibility is to my two young daughters, and your responsibility to your wife and kids. I mean,
Yeah. Exactly. And you said that your mantra is "I can, I shall, I will," and mine is choices determine your future.
so I think we have a pretty good balance. I love that your choices determine exactly, and that's what it is. This is a choice. It's a choice to stand up. It's a choice to take the first steps, and I tell everybody out there, if you don't move, you're not going to improve. Hence,
Hmm.
that's the name of my nonprofit. But so many people, who've had a brain injury or stroke, are afraid to take that next first step.
Exactly.
And you got to choose to want to do it. It's scarier than all age. But people like Marc and I out there, we're here to give support. And my whole goal with kind of what I want to do with people is show them how to become independent again. Because, I couldn't drive for a couple of years. And people call me and ask me, they call me the stroke hacker because I've learned how to hack with one hand. My left arm is not working still. And I said, yet, because I'm determined and I believe that it will wake up. It's getting better all the time. That I've learned how to do hacking maneuvers, how to use stuff in the kitchen, how to use stuff in the bathroom. How do you get in the car and drive again? So whether you're a biohacker or a stroke hacker or it's choices we all decide to make. But I wish I had a you or me back in 2011 because it would have made my job easier to heal because no one out there talking about any of this stuff.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. We find, I like to call it ingenuity, but we find different ways to, get stuff done because, like I said already, I have to think to use my left hand, but at the same time, my left hand, what normal people use two hands to do stuff with, I hate using the word I can't, but I necessarily cannot do, the same thing. So, I can do what most people use two hands with, I can do with one hand, and it's all about finding how to do it.
It's the new, it's like opening up a jar. It's like taking so people don't realize, you'll find, I have stroke hacking tips on my website, adventuresinhealth.tv, and things I offer to the community of what I've used, one-handed cutting boards, one-handed certain things that I consider tricks and tricks that just to reduce the anxiety. Because how hard was it for us to try to open up a jar with one hand or even put toothpaste on a toothbrush? Well, everyone says you use your left hand, your right hand. That's easy enough. But no one thinks like that, and then had to tie your shoes, had to put on a belt, had to put on buttons, and you become ignore them. But it's okay. Your brain will wake up over time. It just takes a lot longer than most others. And by far, Mark, you are a miracle. You are just, talking to you and hearing your story. If you wouldn't mind, show the audience your skull.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some crazy stuff, but brother, by all means, I'm wiping his head now for good luck. Do it ahead, because
right.
And think about this too, which people don't realize. Thousands of hands have touched us and have helped us, and I consider all those people. My gratitude has gone way up. It's forced me to become this egocentric, arrogant, high sped entrepreneur who wanted nothing to do with just accomplish and make money and build. But even with all that money and building, if you don't have use of your brain and your body's not working, what good is it? And that's why I tell people, what's the price to walk again? There's no price. It's priceless.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of making those choices and how determined are you in order to really make that happen. Because you can sit there and go, woe's me, or go, you know what? My life's over. My life is effed. My life is this. You can go play victim, but you and I are victors. And that's why I say the trauma to triumph, because we're triumphing over all this. Things, we're handicapped in certain ways, but we're more active and more normal than most others are going to ever be. If you really think about it,
Yeah, and I do these TV shows every Thursday at 6 p.m. And I bring on these guests that I bring on. I want them to share their testimonies. And all the guests that I bring on, I'm attempting to bring on not only people that have had strokes, just people that have had and overcame adversity in and of itself, whether it be alcoholism, drug abuse, financial, because you can pull inspiration from it, from all of that, and just to let other people know, you're not alone in your current circumstance.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, Mark, if you ever want me to, I'll join any of your panels. I'd love to be involved. You let me know where and when. But I tell people, on the website, the way I broke down my podcasts is it's called Mind, Body, Spirit, and treatment. A lot of people don't know how to treat addiction. They don't know how to treat capability, what's a spinal cord injury, a brain injury, or just I have a friend who was 43 at the time who had a severe heart attack because from I have people who've had heart transplants. I've had people who've been Samantha Harris, who was on Dancing with the Stars, interviewed me yesterday. She came down with uh, um, breast cancer. She was forced off the networks, and here with 2 young kids. And I mean, she's an inspiration. She's a dear friend of mine. But I've got a lot of people out there who just, the loss of a loved one, the loss of death. I have people who've lost their kids to come on the show and talk. That I can't even fathom. I mean, it's like, but I'm having someone who's coming on tomorrow who lost her kid, Denise Willis, who is literally who I consider an inspiration. She lost her son when he was 17 in high school from cancer.
Wow.
And then she goes on to talk about, she's written a book, she's been on Oprah, and she's determined every day to get up and keep going. But it's the choices that people make that make them into who they want to become.
Exactly.
And that's why I love where's your hat say again? It's the choices.
It says, so the question marks are here because we don't know what our we're not psychics. We don't know
what
our choices are. So it's choices determine our future.
That is so wonderful. Well, Mark, I think we should wrap up the show, but if you want to end it, you want to end it.
Yeah. So I always end my shows with the prayer. So we're going to go ahead and end it with the prayer. All right, Shawn?
I love that. Thank you.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing Shawn into my life and letting him and giving him the courage to share his testimony with us and continue to bless the other people that are watching our show and pushing forward and giving them the willpower and the choice to continue to push forward with their progress and therapy. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. God bless you, bro.
Hey, you too, brother.
Hey, thank you so much. Anytime you want me to join, I'm considering you a brother now. Let's do this because there's thousands of people who need us. And
100%.
Anyone out there, if you're listening, please share this with your friends. Please share this in the communities. The stroke world needs Mark and I, and brain injuries, anything else. So lots of love there. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, take it easy, brother.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yep.